Senate will come to order for this Friday, February 18th. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Legislative Day 5, Friday, February 18th. Anderson? Here. Baldwin? Here. Beitman? Here. Boner? Here. Bouchard? Here. Case? Present. Cooper? Here. Driscoll? Here. Ellis? Present. French? Here. Furphy? Here. Guru? Here. Hicks? Here. Hutchings? James? Here. Kinski? Here. Cole? Present. Cost? Here. Landon? Here. McEwen? Nethercott? Pappas? Here. Rothfuss? Here. Perkins? Here. Salazar? Here. Schuler? Here. Scott? Here. Steinmetz? Here. Wasserberger? Here. Hutchings? Excused, Mr. President?
Excused. Oh, yes.
Excused. And McEwen?
Mr. President, Senator McHugh was delayed. I mentioned that I would let him know that he would be right.
Thank you. Excused.
Thank you. And President Dockstader?
Here.
28 present, 2 excused.
Let us pray. Lord God, as our week draws to a close, there is still much to accomplish. If we are to consider certain bills this session, they have to be introduced, else they will have to wait for another time. There's other legislation to be processed in committees, debated on floor, amended, and given a vote. Be with us this day and pour forth your grace into our hearts so that we might be blessed with knowledge, wisdom, and good judgment as we continue the task of crafting legislation. When this day is done and this week draws to a close this afternoon, let us be able to look back at what we have accomplished with the satisfaction of your praise. Well done, my good and faithful servants. For those of us on the road this weekend, grant us safe travel, joyful reunions, and a safe return. For all of us, grant us a restful weekend so that come Monday we may be refreshed and revigorated to pursue a full week about our tasks as public servants. We ask this in all things through your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Senator, or excuse me, Father. See, you've been around so long, we're calling you Senator. So come on up here. Appreciate it. He's helped us many times, folks, as you've known, helped us get the days started right with prayer. And he's also good for a good visit. If you want to come up, just talk to him. Has good counsel. We'll give him our state of Wyoming coin, a legislative coin, and thank him for helping us not only this past week many times, and we're honored to have you in the Senate chambers. Thank you. Thank you.
It is always an honor to be here and to be with you. I was trying to figure out how long it's been. I have prayers back to 2008, but I actually think I started in 2003. So thank you.
Thank you, Father. Appreciate you being a part of our lives for that many years. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. President, may I have the privilege of the floor?
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I'd like to welcome my son, Zane. If Zane would stand up, he's in the balcony above you. This is, he's about 6'1.5" at this point in time, far taller than I am. When he started here in the legislature at age 4, he he was slightly shorter, and it's been nice to have him attend for the last 12 years. And he gave his first public testimony in a legislative committee meeting about an hour ago, and I think he did an exceptional job. So if we can both welcome him and applaud him for his willingness to participate in the public process.
Welcome to the Senate. We hope you'll coach your dad along the way here. We were downstairs, we're looking at the photos in the hallway of the senators down below, you know, as you walk out to your cars with Senator Rothfuss, and we were looking, and, you know, Senator Rothfuss looks young now. He really looked young when he got started. And this young man upstairs was stood about half as tall as his dad at that point, and now surpassing him. So time goes on. Senator Rothfuss still looks young. Most of us have shown a little age along the way. Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have privilege of the floor?
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. President. In the spirit of Bring Your Children to the Legislature today, I'd like to recognize my two youngest children, Lyndon Ellis, who is in 3rd grade, and Archer Ellis. They're actually sitting on the floor. Archie's in 6th grade. They too listened to our Senate education debate this morning. After seeing Mr. Rothfuss testify, I think they were both inspired to do so, only to look at their mom, who shook her head no. So we had a conversation about, you know, you got to get ready for the big game. You got to go to practice first. So just view this as practice day number 1. So I'm sure you'll see them testify at some point in the future. But I think everyone is aware this is serving in the legislature is a tremendous honor, but certainly involves your family. And I got the best of the bunch, man. This crew supports me in ways that I can't ever thank them for. And so I just want to thank them both before they leave and maybe get some Taco John on their way home. But please welcome my two children, Lindy and Archie Ellis.
Lindy and Archie, welcome to the Senate. You have a wonderful mother. In that council, when she shakes her head, would you remember that when you're teenagers, that same direction when she shakes her head? No, just run with that, okay? Thank you. Welcome to the Senate. We appreciate all your mom does for us. Thank you for supporting her. Bye-bye. The other privilege is Senator Case. You have a privilege?
No, I just opened up by the family.
That's great. Very good. Okay, will the reading clerk please read the Journal Committee report?
Mr. President, your Journal Committee reports that the Journal of February 17, 2022 has been read and recommends it be approved. Senator Kolb, Chairman.
Any objections? There being none, the report is adopted. Senator Anderson, I assume you're not objecting to the report?
No, I like the report. It's really good, Mr. President. Mr. President, I think we have a doctor and a nurse today.
Yep.
They must think that we're...
No, that's not,
Oh, okay.
Ellen keeps me lined out. All
Okay.
things in order.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, actually, next, our doctor and nurse for the day. We have with us today Dr. Rob Munger, MD, and Vicki Winnie, RN, from the Cowboy State Healthcare Training located in Douglas. If you'd kind of step up to the chambers here so the Senate could acknowledge you, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and helping us keep healthy. Okay. Oh, we have a Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have privilege of the floor?
Please do.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that today's third and final reading on Senate File 66, which is the ARPA bill. I know that we've gone a little bit around it about that, and I've talked to the Majority Floor Leader, and just by way of announcement, Mr. President, when it comes up, I'm going to ask that be laid back to this afternoon, just to make sure that everybody gets their amendments in and everybody's ready to go. Majority Floor is okay with that, Mr. President. With that, it just is a good solution to make sure that we're ready to go, whatever's got their feet under them before we do that bill. So that one bill, we'll just lay it back to a little bit later to this afternoon and then take it up and then move on.
That's fine with me. I'm double checking here. I think. By the looks of this list and what she's acknowledging, it may be this afternoon anyway, but we'll lay it back should we, in
Okay,
case it
fair
arises.
enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any more privileges? Messages from the House. We're going to do some more.
From the House of Representatives, messages from the House, message number 100, February 17, 2022. Mr. President, House Bill number 21, repealing exemption for one-day pagers, has passed the House on third reading. Ayes 59, excused 1.
Thank you.
Message number 106, February 17, 2022. Mr. President, the House adopted Committee of the Whole report failing House Bill number 34, State Funds, Investments, and Distributions. Ayes 21, noes 37, excused 2. The bill has been indefinitely postponed. Mr. President, the following bills passed the House on third reading amended. Message number 101, February 17, 2022. House Bill number 22, Industrial Revenue Bonds Pilot Amendments. Ayes 41, noes 18, excused 1. February 17, 2022, message number 104, House Bill number 7, Commercial Vehicle Driving Disqualification, has passed the House. Ayes 59, excused 1. Signed, Wendy Harding, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you. Before we go to the introduction of bills, a couple more items, just to remind you, beyond our good doctor and nurse of the day helping us, we appreciate them, but a couple of notes here. Today in Wyoming history. In 1862, the U.S. Congress approved an act entitled An Act to Grant Lands to Dakota, Montana, Arizona, Idaho, and Wyoming. For what? University purposes. Quote for the day, not all storms come to disrupt your life. Some come to clear your path. In this reminder, the online interim topics form was posted on the legislative website at 8 o'clock this morning. You can fill it out. I've already filled one out and sent it in, so be aware of that. Check your email. Now with that, introduction, reading, and reference of bills. Now, folks, on this particular bill, we will introduce it, but it doesn't require a vote or two-thirds vote. It's just simply to introduce it and place it into a committee. This is Senate File 60, Redistricting of the Legislature 2, sponsored by Senator Scott. So at this point, I will just introduce Senate File 60, first reading of the bill, and have it read in, and then we'll proceed from there.
Senate File 60, Redistricting of the Legislature 2, sponsored by Senator Scott.
Okay. All right, so this one, as I understand, we can do this. Senator Kinski, did you have something? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay. We simply introduce it and assign it to a committee, and I'm coordinating this with the sponsor as well. This will be assigned to Committee Number 12, Rules. Okay, let's continue. Senate File 95, first reading of the bill.
Senate File 95, Public Utilities, Service and Other Territory, an act relating to public utilities, sponsored by Senator Driscoll.
Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption of Senate File 95, Public Utilities, Service, and Other Territory. Ask for your favorable consideration. Folks, I think you've been worked pretty hard on this. This bill does exactly what it says. It talks about our local co-ops in Wyoming, and nearly all the rural areas served by rural co-ops that were formed by members that live within the area, and they were granted areas to service as part of the agreements when they came into doing their business. And over the years, they're allowed to allow other utilities to come in and provide power when they can't in certain areas. And over the years now, we're getting where we've got some pretty good encroachments coming in that are not totally agreeable. They can't get the services back, so they'll either build a line in and provide it, or it'll go, and it actually affects the stability and the viability of our co-ops. It's lost sales, and they're in what really originally was set up as a protected territory, and this kind of pierces that. And so we've got two competing interests here. We've got your big utilities that are out there, and then we've got the co-ops, and they're kind of at odds on some of these different areas that the bigger utilities have kind of not wanted to leave an area once they are set up. I will tell you that there's a pretty good push between the two of them, and I've give my word to the body, we're going to come up with something that works, that comes out of it. It's a no harm deal, because it affects whether we end up with service, particularly in some oil field facilities. Oil fields and oil pay a big part of our bills. We're not here to damage them. We're not here to damage our co-ops. And this bill's a means to find a way to make them do that. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration. And we'll have a good, vigorous debate on how it works. And I'm confident we're going to come up with a solution that protects our co-ops, keeps our oil pumping, and gets things done the right way. I'd ask for your favorable consideration.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory vote, Senate File 95, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll?
Aye.
Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? No. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Case aye to no. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 95, 23 aye, 6 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 112, first reading of the Senate file. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, multitasking here. Back on Senate File 95. Having received a 2/3 majority vote, it's referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. Senate File 112, first reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 112, General Government Reports 2, sponsored by Senate Appropriations.
Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate File 112, General Government Appropriations Reports 2, and ask for your favorable consideration. Fellow senators, this is a bill that just requires reports. It is imperative to transparency and accountability because we are dealing with so many funds through this budget and through the infrastructure bill. They're all taxpayer dollars, and so we want to make sure that this is being done responsibly and in a good manner and report back to you as well. And also, we have been cautioned against legislating in our budget, so sometimes you would see some of these reports requested in the 300 series of your budget, but we are breaking that out so that that is not the case, and so that also there is a tendency to have that be vetoed, and so we don't want that. We want to have these reports. So you can just see we have in section 1 and 2, we're requiring the governor's office to report on infrastructure grants, the governor's office for the Wyoming Innovation Partnership. This is something, a new program that he's standing up through his office that we've appropriated funds for. You'll see that in the budget. We want to report on that, and we have to have that and make sure that's being used appropriately before we appropriate any more money in the next supplemental budget. In section 3, 4, and 5, we're requiring reports from the treasurer's office. As you know, 20% of all of our general fund revenue comes from the investments from the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund and other investments we have in the state of Wyoming. And so we're working with his back office build out and some other things there. We need some reports from him. Section 6, the Wyoming Tourism Board, specifically with Quebec One, and that's a new project as well, so we want to make sure that's going well. Section 7, Department of Corrections and Mental Health. We need a report from them on some of their work they're doing, and also Section 8 is Department of Corrections. And that is the bill, Mr. President, so I'd ask for your aye vote on introduction.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introduction, Senate File 112, roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Closing vote closed. Senate File 112, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 112, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Senate File 85, first reading of the bill.
Senate File 85, Child Care Facility Certification Exemption.
Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move Senate File 85, Child Care Facility Certification Exemption for introduction and ask the body to vote aye. What this bill does is it actually helps with a little bit of, believe it or not, deregulation. We have a number of after-school care facilities around the state. Clubs, there's various unit organizations like some folks that were here yesterday, some that larger national organizations. We've got regional organizations, but we have a lot of places in our communities, anywhere from Manchester to Casper to all corners of the state, that have these after-school care facilities. And right now, for years they've been operating under an exemption where they don't have to be licensed as a daycare facility. Those the exemption we've been working under really doesn't fit very well, and there's some subsidies for after-school care sometimes that come with some of those things for low-income families to assist with that. And because some of that's federal funds, there just becomes a bigger and bigger microscope on what's supposed to be licensed. If we don't pass this bill, this exempts them from licensing as a daycare. If we don't exempt this bill, then these entities will have to start to license as daycares. Many of them will simply not provide it or otherwise forego some of the ability and some of the services they provide rather than have to become licensed daycare. The reason why it's not appropriate is they're not changing diapers. They're school-age children. They're there either typically a little bit after school or before school or on summer breaks. Most of them have a significant oversight, some from professionally trained staff to folks that just have a lot of common sense. And so what this bill does is simply creates this new exemption that says that when they're operated primarily when school is not in session, including before, after school, and during summer months, they exclusively serve children required to attend school, and that they're organized to promote childhood learning, youth development, educational enrichment, and they adhere to all local applicable health and safety fire codes and regulations. So they won't be subject to inspection by the Department of Family Services, but they will be subject to inspections by fire department, police, and things like that, your local people that will do that. So we've talked with the various folks around the state. I've had a lot of input on this from folks representing both large and small after-school care facilities around the state. This language specifically has worked with the director and has been modified by the director. She's on board with this and would ask for your vote for introduction. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 85. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstetter?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Closing vote closed. Senate File 85, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 85. Senate File 85, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Excuse me, Committee Number 1, Judiciary. Senate File 62, first reading of the bill.
Senate File 62, Civics Transparency Act.
Yeah, we have Senator Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for introduction of Senate File 62, Civics Transparency Act, and ask for your favorable consideration. Folks, this bill's been portrayed as a huge bill, and it's actually a pretty simple little bill, and it does something that we all look for all the time in this body, which is transparency and accountability. And what it merely does is it requires, and I ask all of you to go to your local school district page and pull it up, and we walk off the floor here, and you'll find, I think every district I've looked at posts all their curriculum and their subject matters. And it's great. That's how I enjoy it. I like seeing that we're teaching Wyoming history, and we're teaching this, and we're teaching that. What it doesn't do is say what materials they used to teach that with. And we all know that I don't mind, and it doesn't tell them what they can use for materials, but it says they need to put them online so a parent or a concerned citizen can look at them and see what we're doing. And, you know, controversial materials are really a good thing in our youth for them to see, as long as they're balanced and they get a chance to see both sides. And really to develop really good interactive adults, what we need is a balanced approach to how they're taught. And we all know that doesn't always happen. I'm not throwing stones, but we hear about instances of it. What this bill does is makes it so you can see what they're using for materials and make sure that it's balanced and helps you to be informed enough to be able to ask those questions that you need to ask your local school board as a parent. And it does nothing more. There's no penalty if they don't do it. It's pretty simple. All I'm asking is when you look at those curriculum pages is that they footnote the materials. Now the bill's probably a little more in depth, and we'll work on it to get it where it's really teacher friendly. I have no intent to impact teachers' ability to teach, because what I want them to do is be transparent about the materials they're using, and the school board and the superintendent can answer those questions if they're hard questions. Those aren't necessarily teacher questions. I think you're going to find it's really good, and we all know that when things get exposed to air, sometimes bad things never show up, and it's not a bad way to have it. The second section of the bill does something that pretty near and dear to me, and it does enter in. It says you're going to highlight certain parts of the U.S. and Wyoming Constitution, and the main one is our part, at least for me, that we're really proud of, which is the equality and women's rights parts of it. And I want it highlighted in Wyoming. I think it's a good thing. What I'll hear overall, and we'll all hear it on the floor, is we already teach that. And if we're already teaching it, what's wrong with putting it in the statutes? So this bill is really purely a transparency bill. I represent to you the equivalent of not doing it, and what they're not doing is similar to, think back to the 1970s in here, and we didn't post bills other than in the newspaper, and you couldn't see them. You didn't know what they were until after they happened. And folks, today you can watch us online on this testimony. You can read the bills ahead of time, and you get to see what we're doing. And it's really not very burdensome once we put the process in place. So I ask for an open mind and a favorable consideration, and we'll have some really healthy conversations about how we help our parents, help our school system be a better system that's better balanced. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory vote, Senate File 62. Roll call, Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. No. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Furphy. Aye. Guru. No. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings, excuse. James. Aye. Kinski. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. No. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. No. Salazar. No. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 62, 24 aye, 5 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 62, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number for Education. Senate File 61, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 61, Sage Grouse Game Bird Farms, no certification expiration 2.
Senate File 61, Senator Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate File 61, Sage Grouse Game Bird Farms, no certification expiration 2, and ask the body to vote aye. Members of the Senate, what this bill comes back and helps extend a program that we started a number of years ago. If you, for those who are here, we had long debates about this. This is a program to try and find a way if we could breed this endangered species, sage grouse, in captivity and then release them to the wild and thereby help supplement and enhance the numbers of sage grouse. That program is about ready to expire. The status, just a quick status update on that program and why I think it's important we extend this. This is being done with no public funds. This is being done with private investment. It's at a bird farm. There's a bird farm up in northwestern Wyoming that raises these birds. They do a lot of Hungarian partridge and pheasant, and they release those out by the tens of thousands. They're doing this with these other game species. They're not collecting eggs anymore. They've done their egg collection. So they've got 54 pairs in there. They're up this facility. There's the good senator from Lovell over there, I believe, or by Cali in Bighorn County and Eastern Park County, has been up and visited this. You can visit with him about what he sees there. It's whether they're getting very, very close. I believe they're about ready on the verge of having some success, but they need a little bit more time to prove up this concept. They're doing it very successfully with other game birds. And quite frankly, if you look where they're doing the pheasants and the huns or the Hungarian partridges, there's some sauce, there's some magic sauce you have to do in raising these birds in captivity and help them be successful. Pheasants are very easy. Huns are very difficult. They've been able to figure out they're not as difficult to deal with huns, but they're more difficult than to deal with pheasants, but they're not as hard to do with huns. So they're getting the hang of this. They're about ready they've got 54 pairs. They're ready to do this. They're not intending to collect more eggs. It shows great promise. Again, there's not a dime of federal government money in this. This is a private solution because it's such a sage grouse, and if this works, it's a great deal. There's not much risk to the state, particularly now because they're not collecting eggs anymore. And with that, I hope I'd urge you to vote aye and let this program continue to see if we can help resolve the issues with respect to this listed species.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 61. Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. No. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Furphy. Aye. Guru. No. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings excused. James. Aye. Kinski. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 61. 27 aye, 2 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 61, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 6, Travel, Rec, Wildlife. Go ahead. Senate File 43, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 43, Community College District Elections.
Senator Wasserberger.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. I move for introduction, Senate File 43, Community College District Elections, and ask for your favorable vote. Members of the Senate, this past summer, the voters of Campbell County voted to approve a tax to start the Gillette Community College by 71% of the vote. And when we completed that, we began to look at what their term of office is. And quite frankly, there's a little bit of a hole there. And so currently, they are on all the 7 elected members of the Gillette Community College Board of Trustees have a 3-year term, and they will all be elected at the same time, which is not what we do in Wyoming. We stagger the terms of 4 members of the Board of Trustees for our other 7 colleges, and then 3 trustees are voted in 2 years' time. So what this bill seeks to do is to simply stagger the 4-year terms. And it's a simple little bill. It only impacts 1 college, which is the Gillette Community College. However, it will impact future community colleges if another college comes in. And as you know, Gillette Community College was the first college in 52 years to be formed. So I ask for your favorable vote.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call vote, Senate File 43. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 43, 28 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 43, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. Senate File 83, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 83, Prohibiting Chemical Abortions.
Senator Salazar. Just a moment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for adoption of Senate File 83, prohibiting chemical abortions, and ask for your support. Honorable members of the Senate, this bill, which was very, very similar to a bill that I ran last year, passed 22-7. Specifically, what this bill does is it prohibits 5 drugs for the sole purpose of abortions. The drug restrictions do not apply to the life of the mother, contraception, miscarriage. I'm not going to explain much of it further. It's a 4-page bill. You know what this bill is about. I will simply make these comments. As I said last year, I reached my hand out to you to work with me to make this bill better. Obviously, no opinions will change. You all know where you stand on this issue, and I bring it forward. I ask for your support. The last thing that I will say is to the pro-life community in Wyoming and to the pro-life organizations in Wyoming, this is the bill that you asked me to bring forward. It is now on the floor of the Senate. You asked for a vote. We will now vote on the bill. And I have kept my word to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Roll call, please, by Chief Clerk.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 83. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 83, 25 aye, 4 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 83, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. Senate File 53, first reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 53, Local Government Liability Pool Amendments.
Before we go on, let me re-refer that. I think I can do that from my chair, right? On Senate File 83, correct? Okay, I want that referred to Committee Number 10, Health, Labor Health. Senate File 53. First reading, do we have that read in? Okay, thank you. Who has this? Senator Nethercott, of course you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good senators. I move for introduction of Senate File 53, Local Government Liability Pool Amendments. Good senators, let's start with what this bill does not do. 1, the bill does not raise any liability damage caps associated with the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act. So we're not doing anything regarding damage amounts or claim amounts. We're simply providing clarification to the statute at request of local governments and the LGLP pool insurance provider that they believe is necessary for the operation of how they conduct business. So that's fundamentally important. It also doesn't reduce or expand coverage that's currently in existence. It really is just providing clarity to the statute. Primarily, the bill clarifies LGLP statutory authority to cover liability that the members already face. The one section indicates that LGLP may not pay more than $500,000 per occurrence. At first blush, this seems to make sense because under the Governmental Claims Act, liability of government defendants is capped at $500,000. But there are two exceptions to this rule. One is for medical providers, which you've heard discussion about that also this session. And secondly is for those cases involving federal liability, for example, violation of constitutional civil rights, which can go beyond that cap. So this bill provides clarification as to the application of the LGLP program for those local governments. For those that don't know, the local government liability pool is a pool of resources works like insurance for local government for when they get sued to have that monies available. Anyone who's familiar with county government likely has seen LGLP in action. And so this bill has full support of all of those stakeholders involved and appreciate the further clarification it provides to how they conduct business. So nothing new, nothing scary going on, just necessary clarification at their request.
Thank you. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 53. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinski? No. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott?
Aye.
Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Kinski, no to aye. Closing?
It's just because he's a lawyer.
Vote closed. Senate File 53, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 53, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. Senate File 51, first reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 51, Fairness in Women's Sports Act.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move Senate File 51, Fairness in Women's Sports Act, for introduction and ask for your favorable consideration. The definition of fairness is impartial and just treatment, and that's what this bill is focusing on, pure and simple, fairness when it comes to athletic competition. With the increase in transgender athletes all around the country competing against biological men and women, biological men and women and girls, we are seeing women and girls being sidelined and watching from the stands. 50 years ago, many people worked hard to pass Title IX, which gave women and girls the opportunity to compete in sports in their own lane. Luckily, I was one of those that was able to take advantage of that landmark legislation. 50 years later, we're seeing the dismantling of that important legislation. Scientific research continues to point out that males have physiological advantages in athletic competition. They have greater height and weight, larger and longer bones and stronger bone density, larger muscles, larger hearts. My husband tells me that all the time. And more lung capacity, increased speed and agility. So they have innate physiological traits which give them athletic advantages over women. This is the reason we have women's sports and why we're not forced to compete against men. Evidence shows us that even with the suppression of a testosterone in a male, it does not substantially eliminate the advantages. Males already have about a 10 to 50% achievement advantage depending on the sport. They've done a lot of studies. One was just recently done by the Air Force, and it showed even with 2 years of testosterone suppression, males still have a 50% advantage in a mile run. After 12 months of hormone suppression, in that same study, males still had a 50% greater leg strength than females. So if you were to take the top U.S. female sprinter, Allison Felix, in the last Olympics, there would be about 250 high school boys with faster times and about 1,000 college men who could run faster. We are seeing more and more of this, particularly at the college level, but also at the high school level. The issue with the University of Penn swimmer Leah Thomas, as a male, he was ranked 462nd in the NCAA, but as a transgender athlete, she is ranked #1 in the NCAA. Her teammates finally protested with a letter through a lawyer asking that she not be allowed to compete in the NCAA finals because they knew that fairness and impartial and just treatment was not possible. The Wyoming High School Activities Association has a policy also, but it opens the door to unfair competition because a male right now, high school male, could identify as a female at any time and compete in any female sport with the individual school having to make the decision. If there was an appeal, then they have a committee at that school that would make the decision. So basically, it would be a no-win situation for that committee and for the females who might be watching from the bench. For competition to remain fair, we must ensure that only biological females are competing in the female category. We can't ignore science and biology. When we ignore that, we put biological females in situations that really are not physically safe for them. Every transgender athlete or male athlete who identifies as a female, they destroy competition for biological females. They displace girls and women, take away playing time, recognition, scholarship opportunities, and potentially, maybe those same biological females will end up dropping out of sports. I think we have to care about their mental state as well if they make the decision to give up because competition isn't fair. The federal courts have recognized that it is constitutional to provide separate programs and opportunities based on biological sex, and it was designed to ensure equal opportunities. So this legislation just simply states, if you're a male at birth, then you compete athletically as a male. There are other opportunities for transgender athletes to compete on mixed-sex teams where biology is not a factor. I'm just an advocate for women and girls athletes in Wyoming, and I think this legislation is a way to honor them and celebrate the ones who have been able to compete for the past 50 years, and also fight for the ones that still in our great state want to have a continued opportunity to compete fairly, impartially, and with just treatment. I hope you will support this legislation. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Senate File 51, introductory roll call. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? No. French? Aye. Murphy? Aye. Baru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinski? Aye. Cole? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstetter? Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 51, 25 aye, 4 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 51, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. Senator Ellis,
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have privilege of the floor?
please do.
Mr. President, today we have the Wyoming Association for CTE, which is your Career Technical Education folks. They're in the gallery, you'll see they're with President Denise Larson. I think for many of us, we've done a lot of work to improve opportunities for CTE students in Wyoming, and so these are the folks teaching our kids important trades. So let's give them a warm welcome from the Senate.
Thank you for attending. Welcome to the Senate. Senate File 54, first reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 54, Licensed Professional Counselor Compact.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 54, Licensed Professional Counselor Compact. The counseling compact provided for in this legislation will allow qualified professional counselors to practice in all states that join the compact. And our licensed professional counselors in this state have asked me to bring this forward to you. This will remove the need for counselors to obtain a separate license in each state which they want to practice. They can practice in any compact state using their Wyoming license. The Counseling Compact is an interstate compact. It's a constitutionally authorized, legally binding contract between the states. The Counseling Compact is the same form and function as other occupational licensure compacts, like the nurse licensure compact, the advanced nurse licensure compact, the EMS compact, the physical therapy compact, the interstate medical licensure compact, the speech language pathology compact. Many of those you've already seen and we've passed here in this body. The Counseling Compact authorizes interstate practice, both in person and, more importantly, by telehealth, by professional counselors who hold a valid, unrestricted home license in any state that joins the compact. Counselors must observe the laws and rules of the state. If they come into our state, they have to practice under our laws. If our practitioners go into another state, they have to adhere to the laws of that state. And this Counseling Compact will go into effect after 10 states have ratified this through their legislatures. Right now, 2 states have already enacted it. There's another 15 states considering it at this time as we speak. So what are the benefits? It preserves the state licensure systems. It enhances public safety through a shared interstate database of licensure and disciplinary information, allowing for rapid verification of licensure status. It improves access to professional counseling services, something very important to very rural states like ours. Increases the market opportunities for our own Wyoming professional counselors by authorizing practice in any member state, including via mental health. It's important to those states on the borders of our state. It enhances mobility for professional counselors. It supports relocating professional spouses, military spouses, military spouses sometimes travel every 2 years to a new location, and this allows them the ability to continue their profession. Improves continuity of care when clients travel or relocate. That's primarily through the telehealth portion of this compact. And it ensures cooperation among compact member states in regulating the practice of professional counseling. This is supported by the state organization that Wyoming counselors belong to here. I won't use them by name, but the state organization here supports it. They brought it to me and asked me to bring this to you, as well as the national organization that the state organization belongs to.
Senator, we got time here, so look
Okay.
for a kind of a closing statement.
I'll wrap it up. One thing that you need to understand is it doesn't affect any practice here, and it is has no physical implications for states. It won't cost the state any money at all. You buy a license, or you buy a privilege to practice, same amount.
Thank you, Senator. Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 54. Anderson? Aye. Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? No. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings excused. James? No. Kinski? Aye. Cole? No. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas?
Aye.
Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? No. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 54, 20 aye, 9 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 54, having received a two-thirds majority vote, is referred to committee number 10, Labor and Health. Senate File 52, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 52, Special License Plates Organ Donations.
Senate File 52, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to move for introduction at Senate File 52, Special License Plate Organ Donation for introduction, and ask for your favorable consideration. One of the constituents in my county asked me earlier this year if we could look at maybe a special donation life license plate. His son was given a new life with a new heart a couple of years ago, and they've been so overjoyed and happy to have a second chance at life that they wanted to do something to bring awareness to organ donations. He had done some research and found out that a state west of us had just passed something similar to this. So this license plate would be subject to the same registration requirements as all others, and the forms would be available at your county treasurer's office, and you'll have space to register as an anatomical gift donor. And there's an option there, if you so desire, to donate $1 or more to promote awareness and education efforts of organ donation. It's strictly an option. These monies would be forwarded to your county treasurer and then the state treasurer into a separate account for the Department of Health to promote public awareness of organ donation. And unless 1,000 sets of these plates are issued before December 31st, 2033, then these plates would be eliminated from production. Just a few facts about organ donation that are kind of important. There's 17 people that die every day waiting for an organ transplant. About 106,000 adults and children are on the national transplant waiting list, and about 2,000 are waiting in our region for transplant gift of life. Every donor can save 8 lives and enhance 75 more. So there is no age limit, which is something I found out when I was doing the research. And 1 out of every 3 donors in Wyoming are over the age of 50, so there's hope for some of you. There have been donors who have had cancer, diabetes, and hepatitis, and they still can donate. So many times the discussion about organ donation doesn't happen until the teenager goes in to get his driver's license or hers. And mom and dad, that's not a lot of the times, that's not when they really want to have the discussion with them about donations. So we do have a number of specialty license plates out there. I know a lot of you are aware of them, and most of them have a higher purpose, just like this one will, like the Wildlife Specialty License Plate. They donate $150 to the Wildlife Conservation Fund. The Tribal Specialty Plate donates $70 to tribal scholarships. UW donates $130 to scholarships, and so forth and so forth. And we have specialty plates for firemen, EMTs, veterans, so on and so forth. This is just one way to encourage folks to sign up as donors, just another way, and to maybe donate to awareness education if they so wish. I hope you'll get behind this. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 52. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? No. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? No. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? No. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? No. Kinski? Aye. Cole? No. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? No. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Cooper? No to aye. Thank you. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 52, 22 aye, 7 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 52, having received a two-thirds majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 8, Transportation. Senate File 69, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 69, property tax limits.
Senator Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption of Senate File 69, property tax limits, and I think I can do this under a minute. This is a very simple 3-page bill. What it simply states is that the taxable value of any property shall not increase in any one year by more than 5% from the taxable value of the property determined in the prior year. So, honorable members, in my county, County 10, I've actually seen property tax assessment increases by over 50%. And when I ever have my town hall meetings, which I had a number of last year, this is the first issue that comes before me, is property tax increases. And unlike anyone else in the state, you all, I'm sure, have heard similar stories of your constituents' property taxes going up. This is an attempt to slow that down, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 69. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? No. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? No. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings, excuse. James? Aye. Kinsky? No. Kolb? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 69, 23 aye, 6 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 69, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. Senate File 86, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 86, wildfires, one-call exemption.
Senator Boner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move introduction of Senate File 86 and ask for the body's favorable consideration. Fellow Senators, this bill is necessary to ensure the continued support of our wildland firefighters. It also has the effect of bringing the law up to date with current practice throughout the state. Oftentimes, when you're in the middle of a rural area fighting fire, these fire departments need help to create fire lines in particular. It might be a county road grader, it might be a local contractor. And unfortunately, right now, the way that the law stands, there's a chilling effect on those individuals who provide necessary support to those efforts. So I ask that you move this bill forward. It's a very limited, very specific exemption. It doesn't upset the delicate balance we've struck in this statute. And just to be clear, One Call of Wyoming does extraordinary life-saving work each and every day, but they're simply unable to help in these situations where there's just no time, and frankly, there's safety concerns with having somebody come in and do a locate, even on an emergency basis, when you're in the middle of fighting fire. So I ask that you vote for this bill to remove the chilling effect that's making it harder for our wildland firefighters to do their job, and vote aye.
Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 86. Anderson?
Aye.
Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner?
Aye.
Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings, excuse. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? I. Rothfuss. I. Salazar. I. Schuler. I. Scott. I. Steinmetz. I. Wasserberger. I. President Dockstader. Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 86, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 86, having received a two-thirds majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. Senate File 111, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 111, Wyoming Financial Transparency Act.
Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the 66th, I bring you the Wyoming Financial Transparency Act, Senate File 111. As you look at it closely, you will see that it is a reporting bill. Probably saw one of these just a few minutes ago, and a lot of the same reports are called for in this bill that were called for in that bill, except one. If you turn your attention to page 3, Romanet 3 is with regard to reporting any issues, including delays, identified by the State Treasurer's Office relating to investment and accounting of funds under the control of the State Treasurer's Office and actions planned or taken to address identified issues. Members of the 66th, Mr. President, in statute 9-1-409, Romanet 3, State Treasurer duties are generally to keep a true and just comprehensive account of all monies received and distributed. Mr. President, today is the 18th of February. The accounting report, audited financial statement for the state of Wyoming that was due at the end of the year is not yet complete. Mr. President, this is the third year that is true. A state that has no debt, a state that has one of the 30th largest sovereign wealth funds on the planet, over $23 billion on deposit, investments moving in the millions of dollars every day just across the street, and we don't have a full accounting of what's going on. I want it clearly understood that I do not, nor anyone that I know, believes that there is any problem with those finances. But the question remains, we don't know that. The treasurer doesn't know that. No one knows that. That's why I bring this bill, to shine a light on that. I ask for your support. While we do this roll call, I just want you to think of two things. One, how much money do you have? I'll bet you all know, approximately. And the biggest reason that I hear why this hasn't been done, many reasons, staff shortages, number one, COVID. I'll leave you with one last thing. We haven't missed a payroll in all this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 111. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? Aye. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 111, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 111. Senate File 111 having failed, or excuse me, Senate File 111 having received a two-thirds majority vote is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. Senate File 113, first reading the Senate file.
Senate File 113, Property Tax Exemption Organizations Funded by the WCDA.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for introduction of Senate File 113, Property Tax Exemption Organizations Funded by the WCDA. Good senators, what this bill does is it extends the property tax exemption that's currently afforded to the WCDA for purposes of its affordable home programs. They own properties that are tax exempt because of their purposes of providing affordable housing, and oftentimes the WCDA works with local nonprofits in facilitating their mission. This would extend that property tax exemption to those nonprofits or programs that work with the WCDA and work similarly with them to effectuate their purpose and to provide that similar tax exempt to those properties. I don't think it affects very many properties across the state, getting that information from many of the assessors across the state to really understand its effects, but I think very minimal. And certainly trying to address the affordable housing issue we have across the great state. I think the bill could use a couple amendments, but I look forward to your introductory votes for approval of this good little bill as it gets worked this session.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 113. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings, excused. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Kolb? No. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? No. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 113, 23 aye, 6 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 113, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 7, Corporations. Senate File 78, first reading the Senate file.
Senate File 78, Language Proficiency, Seal of Biliteracy.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move introduction of Senate File 78, Language Proficiency, Seal of Biliteracy, and ask for your aye vote. Senators, this one is for the kids. To understand what this is about, you might be asking, what is the Seal of Biliteracy? Well, it's an award given by a school, a district, or the state in recognition of students who have studied and attained proficiency in 2 or more languages by high school graduation. Currently, 45 states, including the District of Columbia, offer a Seal of Biliteracy. Wyoming is one of 5 states that does not. So what does this mean? Our high school graduates are at a competitive disadvantage when they apply to certain colleges and as well as in the workforce against those students who have this on their transcripts. So this would simply direct the Department of Education to implement a statewide Seal of Biliteracy program by working with our local school districts. It is designed to give maximum flexibility to the department and to our school districts. Although Wyoming doesn't offer a statewide program, there are 3 districts in our state, Laramie 1, Teton, and I believe just not long ago, Campbell County, that offer the Seal of Biliteracy. There are a few ways to fund this program. It's very affordable. Laramie 1, for example, offers it to about 30 to 40 students. They use their existing budgets, and the amount that it costs them to administer the test is $1,400. A few other options exist. Many AP exams or IB exams can be used to cover it, so those costs are already absorbed. But a district can also charge a student, and the cost of the test ranges anywhere between $17 and $25 per student. So you won't see an appropriation request for this, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, because there are a few ways of getting that cost covered. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, this one is really an effort to make sure that kids that can demonstrate their biliteracy are afforded that distinction on their graduation transcripts. It allows them to compete when they're applying for colleges and in the workforce. So I'd urge your aye vote.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 78. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Whitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis?
Aye.
Aye. French? No. Murphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? No. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinsky? Aye. Cole? No. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstetter?
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote? Closing vote closed. Senate File 78, 24 aye, 5 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 78, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. Senate File 114, Senator Salazar, could you come up and chair for a minute? What did you? Oh, no, let's wait for just a moment. What do you have? Privilege of the floor. And I'm going to let you finish with Senator Salazar.
Senator Baldwin.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like to have a privilege of the floor if I could, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Fellow senators, I'd like to introduce to you the 2021-2022 class of the Wyoming Medical Society Leaders in Medicine. They're over here in the west stands with us. If they could stand when I butcher their name and wave at us. First of all, Dr. Angus McAlpin from Lander, PA Autumn Barrett from Sheridan, Dr. Casey Starks from Douglas, Dr. Jessica Hughes from Cheyenne, Dr. Luke Goddard from Sheridan, Dr. Martha Hagman from Star Valley Thane, Dr. Matthew Fournier from Cheyenne Laramie, Dr. Matthew from Thermopolis, Dr. Megan Ratterman from Sheridan, Dr. Reg Haggie from Diamondville, PA Terry Marshall from Douglas, and PA Tracy Wickersham Frey from Upton. Please join me in welcoming them to the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our next bill up is Senate File 114. The clerk will read the bill in.
Senate File 114, Employer COVID-19 Vaccine Mandates and Exemptions.
Thank you. President Dockstetter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Senate File 114, Employer COVID-19 Vaccine Mandates and Exemptions, and ask for your favorable consideration. Members of the Senate, we finished up and we had this unsettled situation back in November. And I was still trying to think, well, what can we do? I know that I went home and my healthcare worker said, you haven't got a balance for us. Others saying, you know, just keep it clean. And I thought, well, where do we go? So we looked down to the southeast, found a state down there shaped like a panhandle out on the very end of the country. And their good governor and their good legislature found a balance. And so we modeled some work after it and asking for your consideration. Senate File 114. So it has both, it permits employers to have some policies in place, and I referenced my healthcare facility looking for that opportunity. But at the same time, it sets up several options for employees to request exemptions, and that was very important to me. So a series of exemptions were put in there. It does not require or prohibit employer vaccination policy does not require or prohibit that. It also includes several exemptions like pregnancy, anticipated pregnancy, healthcare provider's signature. Several things are put into this, trying to find a balance. Employees who believe they have been terminated under this bill, terminated improperly, they can file a claim with the Department of Workforce Services. We didn't have that in place. Employees who violate requirements may be subject to some penalties, but the key emphasis here is finding some independence for the employees. Employees who have been terminated in a violation of this act are not disqualified from receiving employment benefits. In other words, they can still receive what they need to do if they're terminated while they sort it out. Department of Workforce Services will work with them to take care of all this. It's important to know the law sunsets on June 30th, 2023, goes into effect July 2022. And I come back to the point where we were looking for that balance. You remember, it's working late. We were trying to find that balance between certain employers and the employees out there trying to exercise their individual rights. So we took a hard look at what another state did, found a lot of balance there in a conservative state, and we put together this piece of legislation for your consideration. I think we've found the balance here, folks. Just like to have it in place for a while until we decide whether we're truly done with whatever all this has been the last 2 years. Let's get it sorted out, folks. Ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Introductory vote, Senate File 114. Anderson? Aye. Baldwin? Aye. Beitman? Aye. Boner? Aye. Bouchard? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? Aye. Driscoll? Aye. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? Aye. Guru? Aye. Hicks? Aye. Hutchings excused. James? No. Kinski? Aye. Kolb? Aye. Cost? Aye. Landon? Aye. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? Aye. Pappas? Aye. Perkins? Aye. Rothfuss? Aye. Salazar?
Aye.
Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. Wasserberger? Aye. President Dockstader? Aye. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 114, 27 aye, 2 no, 1 excused.
Would you like me to refer that, Mr. President, to the proper committee?
If you got that, let me make a reference on that. Can you just hand that to me for a moment? Senate File 114, having received 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 10, Labor Health. Thank you. Senate File 77, first reading of the bill.
Senate File 77, name change, duration of residency requirement.
Senator Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move introduction of Senate File 77, name change, duration of residency requirement, and would ask this body to vote aye. Mr. President, this bill came to me from a constituent of mine who was in, sadly, a very abusive relationship in another state. She moved to Wyoming for a fresh start. But after living here for an amount of time, she wanted to change her name to really get away from some of the lingering effects of that bad relationship, only to discover that Wyoming has a 2-year residency requirement in the county where you live before getting to file your petition in court. Recently, she had an opportunity to move to another town in Wyoming, and so although she was almost at that 2-year mark, the clock starts all over again for her. So she will have lived in Wyoming for almost 4 years before she's allowed to ask for a name change. In doing some digging, we discovered that 38 states have no specific residency requirement. Of the states that do, they require 6 months or less. In doing even more digging, if you look at your green book at 1-25-102, in the history, you'll see that this, I believe, was a law that was enacted in 1890, since statehood. A lot has changed since then, Mr. President. We're an increasingly mobile society. I'm guessing that the reason this law was enacted was to prevent people from trying to evade creditors or law enforcement. But nowadays, we have more sophisticated tools such as your social security number that can achieve that purpose. So this bill is very straightforward. It moves that 2-year residency requirement down to 60 days. And it's consistent with how we do business, I think, in this modern world. I'd ask for your favorable consideration, but also want to make it known that if the 60-day mark isn't quite right with you, I'm certainly willing to look at other timeframes, willing to work on any other amendments to make sure we get it right. But this is important to provide some of our constituents relief to actually get to change their name to what they prefer. It's also important to note that this also does not change the existing requirements. A petitioner still has to tell a court why they're requesting the desired name change, and they have to show that it's not detrimental to the interest of any other person. So those requirements still remain in place. I'd ask for your aye vote.
Chief Clerk, call the roll, please.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 77, Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Furphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings excused. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstetter.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing vote closed. Senate File 77, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 77, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. Senate File 81, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 81, clarification of existing state ownership of groundwater.
And we have Senator Hicks.
Mr. President, I would move for introduction Senate File 81, clarification of existing state ownership of groundwater. Members of the body, Article 8, Section 3 of the Constitution says priority of appropriation for beneficial uses shall give the better right. While the state currently regulates groundwater through a prior appropriation system, the precise question of whether the state owns underground water in Wyoming has never been explicitly answered by the Supreme Court. This question is important to any constitutional analysis. Based on the plain language in the Constitution, the nature of prior appropriation, the state likely owns groundwater. Section 8, Article 8, Section 1, all waters of natural streams, springs, lakes, or other collections of still water within the boundaries of the state are hereby to be declared the property of the state. However, the Wyoming Constitution does not specific to either surface water or groundwater, but simply all waters. Providing statutory clarification may simply serve as a legislature affirmatively declaring the existing law of the land rather than waiting for litigation to arise, whether through an inter or interstate water litigation. This just provides, Mr. Chairman, that we mean what we say, and we've clarified what we said, that the underground water of the state of Wyoming is the property of the states. The demand for our water resources are growing. We have multitude of states across the nation that are litigating over the ownership of groundwater and surface water. This just provides clarification in statutes that when a constitution under Article 8, Section 1 says property of the state, that it includes groundwater. Ask for your favorable consideration of an introductory vote of yes.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 81, Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. No. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings excused. James. Aye. Kinski. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstetter.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 81, 28 aye, 1 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 81, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. Senate File 76, first reading the Senate File.
Senate File 76, Financial Exploitation of Vulnerable Adults.
Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move for the introduction of Senate File 76, Financial Exploitation of Vulnerable Adults. Mr. President, this bill is designed to help our financial institutions to deal with a situation where they believe that someone is being financially deceived. And we can think of the situations. It deals with the place where there's a vulnerable adult. Now, vulnerable adult, we typically think of elderly people, and that's certainly true and can very well be, but it's not always elderly people, Mr. Chairman. There are people that have other kinds of disabilities or infirmities and can qualify to be a vulnerable adult. Vulnerable adults in our law have kind of extra protection, and there is good reasons for that. So we're probably talking about the situation, Mr. President, where you have an elderly person, perhaps, they live alone, they have been befriended by someone, maybe it's a caregiver, not necessarily. I know that all our caregivers, most of them do just thankless jobs, so I don't want to pick on caregivers. But sometimes you get close to somebody and you read about these situations where they take advantage of the person with respect to their money, and there's all sorts of mischief that can happen. Some of this mischief takes place involving our financial institutions. You can imagine where someone comes in with and attempts to get a vulnerable elderly person to withdraw money from their account, or you can think of all sorts of scenarios. So our financial institutions have asked for a little bit of help, and this includes our credit unions and our banks, and say, when we're aware of this situation, we would like to be able to do something about it. And this actually requires them to do something about it, but also gives them a little protection if they do so. So, if you're a loan officer or you're a bank teller and something's just not quite right, you're empowered to protect that person that might be being deceived at this very vulnerable point in their life, to protect their assets until it can be figured out. It involves the Department of Family Services. The bank, if they make a mistake in this, there's some immunity. But it says, in good faith, you shall please notify the Department of Family Services, and let's try to help in this terrible situation. I know there are good people, like on the Judiciary Committee, that need to take a look at this bill, and they've talked to me about it. I welcome their input, but it's a good bill. It's something we need, and let's figure out how to do it right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Chief Clerk, call the roll, please.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 76. Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Murphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings excused. James. Aye. Kinski. Aye. Cole. Aye. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. I. Rothfuss. I. Salazar. I. Schuler. I. Scott. I. Steinmetz. I. Wasserberger. I. President Dockstader.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 76, 29 aye, 1 excused.
Senate File 76, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 3, Revenue. Senator Salazar.
Senate Joint Resolution 2. Clerk, read that in.
Senate Joint Resolution 2, Senior Citizen Property Tax Relief Constitutional Amendment.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. President Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do something a little bit different here. I'm actually, with our heavy workload and seeing what just recently passed, and in just a moment, I'm going to withdraw this. But I want to say a couple of things, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. President.
So, over on the west side of the state, all the way up into the northwest above the park, down on through, we're seeing some incredible things happening with property values. One area in our little valley out west has increased by 140 to 150%. That's incredible. I remember back in just before the Great Recession of '08, we had what we thought were big property taxes. We had things going up, and I had a state agency compile all the pieces of legislation dealing with property tax. That big, that thick. And I took it around for a while, shared it with people. Now, I might share it with you again at a later point, even though we're not supposed to show visual examples. I may accidentally have to show it to you. Because it's big, it's thick, it's a lot of pieces of legislation that have not gone through regarding property tax. This was right before the Great Recession. Then the Great Recession hit, and everything went away. Our problem went away. We had bigger problems, trying to keep businesses open. It wasn't a very fun time for my little business. We rebuilt it out of that. But now here we are again. Whatever's happening behind all this 2 years are incredible prices. They come into our state, into certain areas of our state, and they say, how much? That much? And the rest of us are just in shell shock. They get their checkbook out and they say, I'll transfer the funds. I'll buy it. I'll buy your river bottoms. I'll put a big multi-million-dollar house up on the side of your hills. You know what that does for all those who've called this place home forever, for years? I got 4 decades here and I'm watching my property taxes go up. Because we have good neighbors moving in, their intent is good, but it's changing our life financially. So we have to address it. This is just one of many. Involves a constitutional mandate change, so I'm going to be a little careful before we jump into that. And I'm going to formally withdraw it, throw my support behind something that just advanced out of here, at least on the introductory level, just a few moments ago, and say that that's a good start. That's a good start to address this ever-changing problem where people's income will be drastically impacted, 140 to 150%. That's ridiculous. So with that, I respectfully, without objection, withdraw Senate Joint Resolution 2, Senior Citizens Property Tax Relief Constitutional Amendment, in hopes that we can move into the interim, get some work done, and throw support to a good piece of legislation that just moved out and started that process of finding a little bit of relief for those who have called this wonderful state home for so many years. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Senator Case.
To repeat, Mr. Chairman, I object to the withdrawal. It doesn't mean you can just ignore my objection. You certainly can, but I do have the right to object. And the constitutional change is the right way to give tax relief in Wyoming. It truly is. It's the only way. And it's interesting, we've got both people you're in the chair and he's here, but I offer that if he might reconsider, I withdraw my objection. If he might reconsider, he's on the right track.
President Dockstader, any comment?
Let's put it up for vote. Mr. Chairman, I move Senate Joint Resolution number 2, Senior Citizen Property Tax Relief Constitutional Amendment. Maybe we should start the discussion that way. Folks, what we're seeing, and you're gonna see it in all of your areas pretty soon, where there's a big, beautiful mountain range and a river running through it, you're gonna get that tax bill and you're gonna go, oh my goodness, what just happened here? Throw it out there, let's start the discussion.
Chief Clerk will call the roll.
Introductory roll call vote, Senate Joint Resolution number 2. Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. Aye. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Furphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. No. Hutchings excused. James. Aye. Kinski. No. Cole. No. Cost. Aye. Landon. Aye. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. Aye. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar.
Aye.
Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. No. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader. Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate Joint Resolution number 2, 25 aye, 4 no, 1 excused.
Thank you. I appreciate the ground support. Senate Joint Resolution number 2. Please.
So just to be clear, is the proper motion I move to withdraw my withdrawal? Is that the proper motion?
It's been withdrawn. So, Senate Joint Resolution number 2, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee number 3, Revenue. We're going to move that to 3, Revenue. Senate File 41, first reading of the Senate file.
Senate File 41, Expanding Next Generation 911.
Senator Cost.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move introduction of Senate File 41, Expanding Next Generation 911, and ask for your favorable consideration, if I can speak. What this is, folks, is the dispatchers, the transportation people got together and reworked the original statute on 911 to meet the next generation 911, which is slowly coming into our state. All they've done is gone through and readjusted the statute so that it covers the requirements of the next generation 911. It's pretty simple, nothing much there that was changed of any drastic. The only thing changed that was of any necessary size was that there's 13 board members instead of the 11 they had originally had. This is so that we can move into 911, the next generation, which will provide better access and triangulation of locations of calls for emergencies where we've been having troubles. And up in our area, and I also know in a couple other areas of the state, we've had troubles locating because people, when they're stressed in an emergency situation, have a tendency to possibly give the wrong location. This helps to clear that up because next generation 911. With the new equipment, we'll have more accuracy. With that, I would ask for your aye votes. Thank you.
Chief Clerk, call the roll.
Introductory roll call, Senate File 41, Anderson. Aye. Baldwin. Aye. Beitman. Aye. Boner. Aye. Bouchard. Aye. Case. No. Cooper. Aye. Driscoll. Aye. Ellis. Aye. French. Aye. Furphy. Aye. Guru. Aye. Hicks. Aye. Hutchings excused. James. Aye. Kinsky. Aye. Kolb. Aye. Cost.
Aye.
Aye. Landon. No. McEwen. Aye. Nethercott. Aye. Pappas. Aye. Perkins. No. Rothfuss. Aye. Salazar. Aye. Schuler. Aye. Scott. Aye. Steinmetz. Aye. Wasserberger. Aye. President Dockstader.
Aye.
Aye. Closing vote. Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 41, 26 aye, 3 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 41, having received a 2/3 majority vote, is referred to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. Senate File 87, first reading of the Senate File.
Senate File 87, Second Amendment Preservation Act.
Senator Bouchard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for introduction, Senate File 87, and this is the best Second Amendment Preservation Act. And I'm not saying it because I'm introducing it. I'm saying it because this legislation was passed in the Show Me state. And they did show us, because it actually went through a court challenge already. And while it may have others, it's the force that's driving against a central government that wants to push back at our gun rights. When the pendulum swings, we are here to hold that balance. By either passage of a congressional gun control agenda or gun control agenda via executive orders. By asserting our power as a state and refusing to allow the White House to simply commandeer the use of Wyoming's law enforcement, which those guys are our neighbors, they're our friends, they're our family. Commandeering them and our tax dollars to enforce something they want to do in central government. This bill simply tells the federal government they don't have the authority to force the state of Wyoming to help them enforce their agenda. If the White House wants to send federal agents into Wyoming to enforce federal gun laws, they could do that. But Wyoming doesn't have to help them. Rank and file officers, they want protections. They want to know that there's a guideline, there are limits, there are sideboards, so they don't have to step out there. And the way this bill is laid out, I'm sure they could do this on a business card to know what they can and what they can't do. This does not go against the individual officers. This is actually something that would simply someone could take a department to court. We hear it all the time in this chamber about trusting the process. This puts a process in place to make sure law-abiding citizens, again, law-abiding citizens are protected. Criminals cannot use this legislation. It's not for them. It's so law-abiding citizens can be protected here in Wyoming from an overreaching federal government. I ask for your support.
Chief
Thank
Clerk, call the roll.
Senate File 87, introductory roll call. Anderson? No. Baldwin? No. Beitman? Aye. Boner? No. Bouchard?
Aye.
Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Driscoll? No. Ellis? Aye. French? Aye. Furphy? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings excused. James? Aye. Kinsky? No. Kolb? No. Cost? No. Landon? No. McEwen? Aye. Nethercott? No. Pappas? No. Perkins? No. Rothfuss? No. Salazar? Aye. Schuler? Aye. Scott? Aye. Steinmetz? No. Wasserberger? No. President Dockstader? No. Closing vote? Closing. Vote closed. Senate File 87, 9 aye, 20 no, 1 excused.
By your vote, Senate File 87 has failed to receive a two-thirds introductory vote. Senate File 87 has failed introduction. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, note the time.
Okay, I was making a decision whether to wait or not. It's clear that you're hungry, so. We've got a hosted lunch today, everybody, and we're gonna do it short. We want everybody where they can get a chance to get home, so Wyoming Business Alliance has graciously provided us all box lunches and great food in the break room. So with that, Mr. President, I move we stand recessed until 1 p.m.
Announcements. Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, your committee, Minerals, Economic Development, will meet in 15 minutes in Capitol Extension Room W4 to hear a whole line of bills. Senate File 47, Carbon Storage and Sequestration. Senate File 84, Mineral Royalties Proportional. Senate File 55, Insurance Sandbox. Senate File 68, DE, Centralized Autonomous Organizations. Senate File 71, Deregulated Industrial Power Zones. Senate File 56, or as many as we can get through in 45 minutes. Thank you.
Good luck with that. Senator Landon.
Thank you. Mr. President, your Transportation Committee 8.
Let's just hold it down so we can hear the announcements. Thanks.
Transportation Committee 8 will meet on Monday evening in W2 to take up the following bills, Mr. President. Senate File 17, Automated Transport of Cargo and Goods. Senate File 92, Driver's License or ID Card Renewal or Extension Exception. Senate File 22, Utility Trailers, Permanent Registration. And Senate File 14, Telecommunicator Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation. Again, that's Monday evening in W2 upon adjournment. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Let's go over to Senator Kinsky.
Mr. President, thank you. Senate Appropriations Committee number 2 will immediately after gobbling a sandwich meet in room 301 to hear Senate File 112, General Government Reports 2.
Thank you. Up to Chairman Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Monday at 7:30 a.m., your committee 10, the Perfect 10, will meet to discuss Senate File 21, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Accreditation Amendments, Senate File 89, Child Protection, Dangerous Drugs, and Senate File 54, Licensed Professional Counselor Compact. And I'd like to remind the body, I know we don't have much time, but the Governor's Task Force on Healthcare down in the connector, it does have some lunch, and they'd be happy to see your smiling faces.
Thank you. I thought I had someone over here. No? Okay, let's go back to Senator Kinsky.
Mr. Chairman, staff has politely informed my chairman, who has politely informed me that we haven't noticed Senate File 112, so we'll take it up at a later date. Thank you.
Appreciate your politeness. Senator Anderson.
Mr. President, I forgot to mention that the Secretary for the Minerals Committee has brought 5 box lunches up to the lunchroom. So we can pick those up and eat them before we move down to the meeting room. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Floor Leader.
Mr. President, thank you. Just a quick one. I just walked into the break room on top of the great lunches we've got. There is incredible cookies given by the Wyoming Library Association, so they are good ones.
Cookies are nice.
Thank you.
Okay, you heard the announcement. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. The Senate will stand recessed until 2 p.m., 2 o'clock. Thank you.